News Talk 640 WFNC. I tell you, we got a crowd in here right now. And I like having crowds. I feel like Johnny Carson. You know, we're connecting everybody here. I'll show you the connections here in a second or two. We on camera right now, and I always like to punch up the person who's on the camera. So when you look at the podcast on my Facebook page or on my YouTube page, you will see your picture. That's the thumbnail, and you say, hey, that's where I was. That's my story. So you won't have to go through 3 hours worth of show in order to find your thing here. Judge King, you come in here every other Wednesday.
Yes.
With a whole bunch of stuff.
I try.
And now you bought, I'm going to bring them up on camera here. You have 2 magistrates with you here to talk about a number of different things. Introduce your guests.
Well, we have our chief magistrate, Michelle Johnson, and then we have Nicholas Sisk, who's also one of our magistrates.
And you're the chief judge,
Yes.
district court judge for Cumberland County. And how long have you been in that position?
I've been the chief since 2021.
And you're up for re-election, but nobody's running against you?
Yes.
Come on now. That says an awful lot. We appreciate what you've done all these years.
I'm grateful.
Yes, and we talked about some of the cases that you had to cover, and a lot of the times when you have to deal with children, it's pretty difficult for you to do.
It's always difficult because emotions, you want to make sure you do what's right for the children. So it's a lot of different factors that we have to take into consideration.
You brought your magistrates here, and you sent me a note to tell us some of the things that they can talk about. And I'm just read a couple of these things off here. You know, you deal with weddings, small claim courts, civil filings, and evictions. What's the difficult things for magistrates to deal with when you have to have people come in? You have the good and the bad. Let's talk about the bad first, and we'll get to the good. But folks have to come to you and deal with bond and get a bond. How does that work?
Well, we take into consideration the crime itself. That's the first and foremost indicator of how we will proceed, because there are several crimes in which a magistrate cannot set bond on. But we look at the seriousness of the offense and in the history of the individual before us. But we have to keep in mind bond is not punishment. Bond is to ensure the appearance of court of the defendant brought before us.
You know, I've always been kind of intrigued with the bond situation, because you get a bail's bondsman, and you have to pay a percentage of what the bond is. For example, if it's a $50,000 bond, how much does a person have to pay if it's not secured in order to get out?
A bondsman cannot charge more than 15% of the total bond. Some bondsmen charge a lesser amount. Some can charge up to 10% if they wish, but state law provides that they cannot charge more than 15% of the total bond.
And, you know, we see a lot of shows where there's someone bounty hunting to bring someone back who missed the bond. How does that work? I mean, why is it up to the bondsman to grab the person, bring him back? Explain how it works.
So if a bondsman wants to go off of a bond, they would collect the defendant and present them to the jail and submit documents and paperwork to us and surrender them to the jail to release them financially of the responsibility of the defendant. If the defendant is already in jail, then that bondsman does not have to go out and do what they would consider to be bounty hunting. They would simply submit the paperwork to go off of the bond.
Now, I'm going to turn my mic back on. Your Honor, when a bondsman goes out like that, do they have legal right to go and arrest someone, or how's that work?
They do have the legal right to go and take them into custody so that they can surrender them, because the contract that they entered into as far as their obligation to appear in court and abide by whatever conditions that were set.
So it's up to that individual. They get them, they bring them in. Now, at that point, what happens to the bond?
The bond would go back to the original bond that was set initially by whomever, either the judge or the magistrate. So if the bond was $50,000, then that would be the bond that would go back onto the defendant, and they would have to post that bond again.
And what's the difference between a secured bond and a non-secured bond?
Secured bond is that you have to post something to be released. And in North Carolina, one of 3 ways you can get released, and that's by posting real estate, which is house or land, going through a bondsman, or cash.
And so if I put my house up to secure my bond and I don't make it, you get to take my house?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And that money goes to the county school system.
Is that right? How often has that happened?
Often.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not.
Oh, we
Yeah.
get a lot of people that come in and they put grandma's house up and
No, they don't.
They do.
their parents, yes.
Well, don't you feel bad taking grandma's house, Your Honor?
Well, we have to do it by law. I can feel bad, but the law requires it.
And there is information that we provide to those folks to let them know the consequences of posting someone's real estate, their home, to get someone out of jail. They have to sign documents understanding what happens if Junior does not appear in court.
So you mean that if grandma has to sign the document saying that I know that if my grandson doesn't show up, you're going to take my house.
Yes.
And where does grandma go?
What do you mean?
If she wishes to do that, she would have to first go to the tax office, and that tax information is presented to us to show that the value of the property and that the taxes and there are no liens against the property. Now, if the bond is more than $50,000, there's an extra step that they have to go to the clerk's office. They have to do a deed search, title search, and so that's a bit more complicated.
Well, look,
Process.
I don't want to beat this one down, but I've done a lot of stories, and I just normally say the secure bond said $300,000, and he makes his next court appearance so and so, and then I go on about it. But when you dig into this, for anyone who has to go through the process, they really need to understand the severity of that commitment of signing that paper for a bond for your house that your grandmother lives in, and you not fulfilling the obligations to appear in court, because that's all that this is doing. That's all it's saying is you're going to appear. But if you jump bail and go to another state or something like that and say you're not going to make appearance, now if the bail bondsman catches the guy and bring him in, is the house still given back, or how's that work?
So that's a different process altogether. A bondsman is not involved in
Real
the
estate.
putting up the real estate. The bondsman would only be involved if the bondsman posted the bond, and the bondsman receives a premium to post that bond. And if that person jumps bail, as you had said, then the bondsman would go and arrest the defendant and bring him back.
Well, this is interesting stuff for me. I didn't realize all that part of it because, fortunately for me, I've never had to see either one of you two. And I hope to never have to see. Well, I did have to go. I never come in front of you, Your Honor, about anything. But I have.
Sat in my courtroom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've sat in your courtroom. Sometimes if you've never been to a courtroom to watch what goes on there, if you would let us bring popcorn and something to drink, it's a show. I mean, you can't believe some of the stuff that goes on in the courtroom. You've seen some. What's the most outrageous thing you can remember, Your Honor?
I really can't recall. There's been so much. But I think anything that you see on TV could very well be seen in our courtroom.
And if how about dress? There's a certain dress that people have to wear when they come in. There are people who wear all kind of stuff.
Well, we want you to be presentable, no midriffs. We want you to dress appropriately. But we also take into consideration that people have financial differences. And so not everyone can appear in a suit. But you could appear in some slacks, long pants, not pajamas, not bonnets, not having your stomach or, being revealing. And so just a certain decorum that we do require.
Okay, let's get off of that because there's other exciting things that we can talk about. I have all of you up on camera right now on the podcast. If you're just joining us right now, 718, you're looking at three folks from our court system, Judge King, and also Michelle Johnson and Nick Sisk.
Sisk.
Right,
S-I-S-K.
just a Sisk. And the neat thing about Rick is he's an Army Ranger. We appreciate it. And he's a Winter Ranger, too. Sewed his tab on with a white thread. He's hardcore.
All right.
Rick, what do you want to add to this thing here?
Well, I'd like to add to talk about small claims court is
Wait, hold on one second.
okay.
What kind of operation are we running here? Yeah. Okay, now turn his mic on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Small claims court, probably the easiest way to explain small claims court, it's Judge Judy, except we're nicer. A lot of the drama is turned up a couple notches on Judge Judy, just for entertainment value. But if people want to get an idea of what a typical small claims case is like, or typical small claims hearing is like, Judge Judy or Judge Wapner or Judge Brown are typical examples. In fact, a lot of the cases they get for those shows, they pull from small claim dockets. So those are actual real small claims cases that they choose to use on the TV shows.
And the outcome for those shows are binding?
Yes. Well, they signed a binding contract with the TV shows. So they choose to remove it from the court setting to the show. And typically the shows will pay them what they're asking for, so everybody leaves happy.
Oh, so it is more just dramatic for television than anything.
It's a real binding on them, and they agree to the results that Judge Judy or Judge Brown says on TV.
Judge King, any TV stuff for you in the future once you leave the bench and say, hey, I'm going to be Judge King, and now I'm Judge King.
I will not rule it out. Let's see.
Well, you do a fine job in here, so that would be interesting. All right, look, we're going to take a little break and come back to you here in a second, because you weren't supposed to come on until 7:20.
That's right.
And then we got a special guest who's in here, and I want to make sure we bring him in because you knew him, and you didn't know that you knew him when you saw him until you. Well, we'll save that until we come back, and we'll talk about a few more things. We want to talk with the magistrates about filing a civil process and also evictions. You know, that's got to be a nightmare for folks. And I know several realtors who say, it is a nightmare when you have to get in there. You get somebody, you get a certain amount of time, or they get them out, they tear up the place, and we'll talk about all that in a few seconds. You're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC. Right now, we've got Fayetteville's most dependable forecast with CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel Dunsing.
Wednesday will be mainly cloudy with a few isolated showers and a high of 62. Overnight will be mostly cloudy with more rain arriving before sunrise and a low of 52.
Your mics are dead.
Thursday is going to be a
You can call. Anybody want water?
No, we're good. I'm just fanboying out
Thursday
right
as
now.
well as part of
I listen to
Friday.
your show every morning, and now I'm here.
Oh, stand by one second.
Be nice with highs in the 60s and 70s. That is your favorite forecast. I'm CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel Dunsing.
Rachel, thank you so much. Right now, we've got 44 degrees in Fayetteville, Hope Mills, and also in Bun Level. You're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC.
Fayetteville's first radio station and still first in serving our community.
Okay, I'm sorry, man. You were saying you weren't.
No, I said I listen to your show every morning.
WFNC640am.com anytime.
Oh, well, I'm glad you made it in here. Yeah. Now, all the writing on the wall was when Jennifer was here. That was her thing. She had people signing. They're going to redo the studio for me, and I wanted all that done because I'm doing a podcast, and I want it to look very good in here. I want to get rid of some of these microphones like this because they inhibit camera angles. So I'm bringing a television, because I'm a television guy. So this is, and it looks good, and a lot of people can, watch it right on their phone as opposed to listen on the radio.
I did watch. Yep, just in the text. I mean, I guess it was the radio, but it looked like a podcast.
For your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T2.
Yes.
Next generation testosterone booster. Text now and we'll include a bottle of
Yeah, it is podcast, and so.
powerful fat burner
Let me see where.
absolutely
Yeah, so they appear just like this, and so you'll be able to see yourselves, on my Facebook page. So right now we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So with this software that I have, as soon as I go live, it alerts all my followers that hey, it's on. So then they can say, hey, let's see who we've got on today. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. No stopping you.
Well.
Decades.
Well, my thing is, I'm from Philadelphia, never been south until I was a battalion commander for my ROTC unit in Central State. When I graduated, I got an RA commission, and it's just like graduating from West Point. I was a 30-year guy. I got Signal Corps, but I put in to go to Fort Dix. I want to be near Philly. They said, no, man, you're going to airborne school. We're going to send you to Fort Bragg. I said, Fort Bragg? I've never been south of Washington, D.C. So I get on 95. I tell my dad, hey, they got me going to Fort Bragg. I come down, and I get down to Richmond. I get out to go to McDonald's, and I go in there, and the woman says, can I help you? And I just busted out laughing because I had never heard a Southern accent in person. I'd have gone with the wind, but in person. And she said, what's so funny? I said, I'm here. Yes, you are. And I've not gone back to Philadelphia. I've been here since 78. You don't believe me? I think I had my Ranger hat on yesterday. Who that is?
Right now to try it for free. That's
This is the hat that my platoon sergeant gave me when he saw me standing doing a report on Channel 5. I hadn't seen him in years. I told you this story yesterday. He's standing like this. I'm on Bragg Boulevard, and I finished. I said, "Back to you, David." And he came and said, "Lieutenant Baez." I said, "Sergeant Harris, how you doing?" He said, "Man, we're proud of you, man. We see you on TV. And everybody don't believe that you are our lieutenant." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Will you come down to South Carolina and visit the guys?" I told you this story yesterday. So he said, "Be at 1300. I'm there at 1259. He has all the guys out in formation because he told them we're going to take a picture. I roll up with Ranger on the front of my Jeep. They said, "Who's that from Fort Bragg?" I stepped out and it's me. They say it's Lieutenant Baez. Man, we had us a great time. But that's what the military is. You know, it's nonstop. So. All right, we're back to business, y'all. I know. Sookie now. News Talk 640 WFNC. Kill that music because I can't figure it out here. Whew, man. You know what? I wish that we can just play what we do during the breaks because that's some of the best stuff that goes on in the studio. We talk about a lot of different things. We've got the Honorable Toni King in here along with her cohorts who happen to be magistrates in the Cumberland County court system. And we're talking about a lot of things. We talked about bonds. I tell you what, if you don't know about bonds, you need to study up on that and find out what that's about. Turn this down because when you hear all the things that are involved with that, you could lose somebody's home and all that kind of lose your freedom. I just can't imagine being in anybody's jail. I mean, that's enough for me. I did one story where I went up to the old courthouse and part of my stand-up was I was in the jail and they closed the cell on me. And when that thing hit, it made me said, I will never commit a crime in my life. I can't imagine that's going to be my existence. Right. You know, but anyway, there are people who say, what the heck? All right, Your Honor, why did you bring these people here with you? And there are a lot of things that they can do and talk about.
Well, I think that a lot of people don't know what magistrates do. Sometimes they don't even know that magistrates exist. They believe that the judge is doing everything. And so I thought it was important to know that we have magistrates here in Cumberland County. They work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They never close. And so when you don't see the judge, a lot of times behind the scenes, what you see is the magistrates doing a lot of different things. As you said earlier, they have several different duties that they also have to comply with. Weddings, small claims court. They do 50B domestic violence protection orders when the courts are closed. So I just thought it was important for the public to hear and to know some of the duties that they have.
Well, let's talk about a couple of those duties. And we alluded to the fact we're going to talk a little about evictions. That can be a complicated thing. And they refer to you both as Your Honors also. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Your Honors, talk about evictions. Because if you're a landlord and you want to get somebody out, there's a process that you have to go to. And a lot of times people say it's in favor of the tenant as opposed to, isn't that right? Don't you hear that all the time?
A common statement made by landlords is that tenants have all the rights.
Bring that microphone a little bit closer to you.
A common statement that is made by landlords is that the tenants have all the rights, but the reasoning behind the creation of the laws is because years ago, landlords had no laws that they had to follow in order to remove someone from their home. And so there are laws that they do have to follow, but it is equal. There is no other process in the civil system in which you can get a court case within 7 days before a magistrate or a judge. The small claims process for evictions is expedited, so to speak.
I think one of the best ways to explain it is small claims court is the 20 items or less express lane in the courthouse. District court, when you schedule a case, it can take months for it to go through the docket and the procedures, and the case itself can take hours during the hearings. Superior court can take months, sometimes even years to get through the system. Magistrates court small claims court is designed on purpose to be done in days. It's supposed to be fast and simple on purpose.
But the problem I hear from a lot of landlords is the fact that the amount of time, I don't care if it's a week or a month, it gives the tenant enough time to tear up the place. And when that happens, who's liable, and is the court involved in saying, well, now that you tore up the place, now there's additional fees? How does that work?
Yes, they're liable, but again, one of the things that it's always impressed upon us is we have to be fair, and it's fair to everybody. You've got to give a reasonable amount of time for the landlord to do his paperwork. You've also got to have a reasonable amount of time for the defendant to prepare their case. So we're not just trying to be fair to the landlord, we're also trying to be fair to the tenant. So we're trying to be fair to both sides. But if the tenant decides to go crazy with a baseball bat after they're being evicted, the landlord can sue them again in small claims court for the damages done to the property. In some cases, if it's willful, they can even take out criminal charges.
Well, if they didn't have enough money to pay for the rent, they're not going to have much money to pay for the damages. That's why I'm not a judge, but I have played one on TV.
Well, what I tell people all the time is that when you get a judgment for money from a magistrate or a judge, that judgment is good in North Carolina to collect for 10 years. So they may not have it now, but if 2 years from now you see them jumping up and down on TV when they won Powerball, you can go get the money then.
Okay. Good luck with that. I mean, the odds of winning that is 1 in 192 million. I mean, if I'm waiting for the Powerball guy to fix my apartment, I'm in trouble. Okay, but look, all right, look, enough of the bad stuff. Let's talk about the weddings and things like that. And you want to say that, you just start peeking out and everything. It's got to be a neat thing to have someone get married in front of a magistrate. Talk about the process and how quickly could it be done?
Generally, I would say that most of the times, 99% of the times when people are before the magistrate, it's not for happy times. So the one thing that we do get to participate in a joyful occasion is the marriage. And the process would be that they have to obtain their license first from the Register of Deeds. And then they can immediately walk over to the detention center. And I say the detention center, that doesn't sound very appealing, but we do have a chapel in the detention center where folks come in and you can bring your guests, and you do have to have at least 2 witnesses, and $50, and 30 seconds or more later you will become husband and wife.
Well, that's a good point. I've been over there covering a murder or, the first appearance of someone, and then I come out and I'm interviewing the district attorney out front, and all of a sudden someone comes out in a wedding gown, and so there's an awful lot of stuff going on over there at the detention center. And there was a time, Your Honor, and you remember this, when the jail and everything was separate, and you didn't have you always had to have first appearance at the courthouse, and they had to walk folks through the chamber downstairs. So there were 2 separate places, but now they put a courtroom, and that is an active courtroom. Yes. Inside the detention center itself.
Yes.
So
when we had the new jail built, we had a courtroom built inside the jail to cut down on the transporting of the defendants that are in jail.
So it works out okay.
Yes.
In terms of security.
Security, for costs, because you don't think about it, but it costs money to load up the defendants onto a van to transport them to the courthouse and then transport them back. It takes personnel away from the sheriff. So it is a lot more convenient to have them right there.
Okay. And the process in terms of getting married, you said it can happen just in a matter of minutes or seconds. How much does it cost?
It's $50 to the magistrate to marry.
$50?
50 whole bucks.
And you're married. You're just as good as someone who spent $20,000 on a wedding.
Exactly.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not.
We have the cheapest weddings in the county.
Is that right? Okay. Well, there you have it. That's what you can do if that's what you want to do. All right. Well, look, Jan, it's always a pleasure to have you here.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Do you have a second after we go to commercials? Because I want you to be here and talk a little bit with our other guests.
Yes.
Okay. All right. You're listening to News Talk 640. Thank both of you, all 3 of you. As a matter of fact, let me bring everybody back on screen here. I hope I never have to see you. But, if you think about that, you have one of those jobs that you hope you never have to see unless you're getting married or something. What other good thing could I come and see you for? That's it.
That's it. Yeah, unfortunately, that would be it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't see people on their best days.
We tell people, we usually see people when they're having the worst day of their life.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the work you do because it has to be thankless. You know, and if you think about it, it is a thankless type job. But like you say, not only does somebody have to do it, you got to do it 24/7. And so we appreciate what you
Never
do.
close.
All right. You're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC. Right now, we've got local news with CBS 17 meteorologist. No, with CBS 17, was it Bill Young? Bill Young, take it away.
Well, thank you for having us here. We appreciate it. It's been an honor.
I can't see. Bill Young, put his name on it. See,
Well, this is one less thing on my bucket list.
see, there's Bill Young.
Oh, yeah, like you said.
So
I'm
while
not kidding.
he's
I'm a
on the
fan-
air, I
I'm a
have
fan,
him
but
up.
I've listened
This
to
is what's on the podcast right now.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah, you bet.
All right.
Gilbert's been very kind. He's had me here, he's covered stories that I've done.
Yes, yeah. Well, you know, look, and I've always told all the judges, it's when I was a reporter, I said it is important for you to let cameras in court. Not all judges do that because it's the people's work. And other than running for election, they don't get to see you. And one thing I always told every judge, you let my camera come in court.
We have a list of locations at CBS17.com.
Wait a minute, hold on for a second.
Newsroom,
Put Rachel
I'm
up.
Bill Young.
Miss Rachel.
Wednesday
Yeah,
will be
they
mainly
took the
cloudy
thing out
with
'cause they're gonna
few
paint the wall.
isolated showers with a high of 62.
Yeah, they took the.
Overnight will be mostly cloudy with more rain arriving
Oh,
after
my gosh.
sunrise and a low of 52. While Thursday is going to be a cloudy and
I got
windy day
a
with
whole
a high of
collection
65.
at military stuff. You know this is too.
As well for
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Temperatures
it.
are
Thank
Friday
you.
as well. This weekend though,
Thank you.
nice with highs in the 60s and 70s. That is your favorite forecast. I'm CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel.
Stand by 1 second. Thank you so much, Rachel. Right now, we've got 45 degrees across the board. Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, and Spring Lake. You're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC.
This report is sponsored by Fox One. Fox News